Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It is currently the exact 1st of July, so we have had a whole month of reading since I last spoke to you. I put a bunch of books on my TBR last month and I actually can't even check whether I have completed them or not because the video has been taken down, which is so sad, but it is okay because I actually think I managed to really beat that because I put only 6 books on my TBR last month and I have officially read 8 books in the month of June, which I am so proud of myself. If you see here, there is quite a lot of different variety. We've got fantasy, historical fiction, romance, thriller, romance, literary fiction, and then historical romance, which is really good for me. I think, like, yeah, there was a few romances. I did really enjoy those, except for 2 of them, which was really upsetting. But this month's reading has just been so amazing for me because most of the books I was literally devouring in like a couple sittings. I would go up to bed and I would just read for like hours and hours upon end. And then also I'm a really lucky girl because my boyfriend absolutely loves football, and all the football time that has been taken up recently, I have just been reading my books, so it has been really nice. And I happen to know that this next month I'm hopefully going to be reading more because I've got this scrapbook, so I'm going to be doing a lot of audio booking whilst I do the scrapbook. And I've also got World Cup things. It's going to be a heat wave, so I'm going to find myself on the field and at pubs and at Costa a lot more. I'm just really excited to get these books, like tell you about them, and then go on to telling you in the next video what I'll be reading in the next month, because I've got loads of like seasonal books that I am aiming to read. So yeah, here are my books. I'm going to tell you in order of the way I finished them. So I'm going to tell you the last book I read and then go to the first, because that is just the way they are stacked up and have been since the beginning of the month. So the last book I finished was Scent of Lavender by Elizabeth Elgin, and I actually finished this last night. It follows 2 women, Lorna and Ness. Lorna, who is married to a man 10 years her senior, who is not a nice man, to be honest. I do like an age gap romance, and her husband is not the nicest guy ever. He is actually quite mean, and he gets sent off to war as an accountant. He enlists early to get himself a position where he is safe, and then Lorna is told that she needs to take in someone as she now has a free space in her house, and she takes in a land girl named Ness, who is heartbroken, and through it together they get through the war. They adopt loads of chickens so they can have little eggs, and they both start working in the war. Ness becomes a land girl, Lorna becomes a postwoman and a secretary at doctors, and they're both just doing their bit for the war, and they both have little romances with soldiers. One is like a Conchi, a conscientious objector who comes to work for the farm with Ness, and then he does get enlisted by choice. And then Lorna's partner is like a medical officer. She falls in love with him despite the fact that she is married. And now this does sound like a really spicy, like a bit of a taboo kind of romance, but honestly it is not. The historical aspect of this book was really good. I really appreciated it. Like, it was amazing. However, the actual romance, the Lorna and Ewan basically spoke to each other like 6 or 7 times, and there was not very many spicy, like, oh my god, there's like tension between them. There was barely any of that. The only one was like in the woods where they had like a passionate kiss. So that was annoying. And then Ness and Mick, there was, I guess, some like where he beat this other guy up for her. That was cute. And the way he asked her to marry him was really cute, but the rest of the time it was like most of it just avoiding each other. And honestly, there was more of grounds to build a romantic connection between the 2 girls than there was to build a connection between the 2 girls and the men. Like, that's how the book gave. However, the book was written really well. I did find myself losing myself in the book. The chapters were very long and the words were very small, and I do feel like a lot of it could be cut out. But overall I did rate this 2.5 stars, a 2 star for the romance, 4 star for the fiction. I'm meeting in the middle. I mean, the middle would be a 3, but I'm not willing to give it a 3. So that was A Scent of Lavender by Elizabeth Elgin. I am really hoping that I will get a really good like historical romance. I've got a couple over here that I will hopefully be reading in the next month, and I hope that they deliver. The next book I read was Yellowface by Rebecca F. Kuang, which I loved this book so much. I think I was really terrified of reading it, and the times that I have seen it in a shop I've been like, I can't read that, like I'm not ready for it, because obviously this book is by Rebecca F. Kuang and her books are always packed with like a punch. You go into it and you think like this isn't going to be that interesting. Like the last book was about a guy who like learned loads of languages. This book is a book about a girl who stole a book from another author, and every time I think this isn't going to be interesting, this isn't going to captivate me, and then there's a story that is hidden underneath it and it just blows you away. And I knew that this was going to happen going into it, so I was just afraid. I'm also quite often afraid of literary fiction books because of what they're going to mean underneath it. I'm always afraid because there's not going to be a romance chugging it along, and I'm primarily a romance reader, despite the fact that I am trying to expand that. I have forever wanted to read like loads of literary fiction books. I'm always just too scared to actually get into the nitty-gritty. This book absolutely blew me out of the water. I read it so fast. I started listening to it as an audiobook, automatically was hooked onto it. Absolutely loved the fact that the main character, she would have thoughts like, oh, this isn't racism what I'm doing, and then she was like removing Asian people, mostly Chinese, what's it, point of view. She was removing their point of view from a book that was centered around the Chinese like effort in World War One, and how they were like forced to do a lot of unpaid labor. They were really racially targeted. They were basically removed from history. Like they went to this war, they built lots of things like bridges and stuff, and then after the war they were taken out of it, and their involvement was basically erased. And the author, she stole. There was two girls. One girl wrote the book, that girl died. This girl then stole the book, and that was the whole premise of the book. And she then removes a lot of the Asian narratives from it, and she was like thinking the whole like, oh, this isn't racist, this is just making it more palatable for the reader, more relatable for the reader. And you could it was so interesting to see the way her mind works, because it was so narcissistic. All the thoughts she was having about other authors, all the thoughts she was having about the author she stole from, all the negative ones, they counted towards herself. She was essentially talking into a mirror, and it was so interesting and so good to read, and I just really loved reading it. It was just amazing, and I was just sitting there like, wow. Yeah, 5 stars this one was. If someone stole my work after I died and then started removing loads of the like emotional bits from it, wow. And they started removing the core of the work, especially obviously this was trying to relive lived experiences. It was just insane. And then we're going to go on to a 1-star read, which was Hooked by Emily McIntyre. I was told by so many people that this was one of the most incredible books ever. Like the reviews were like 5 million stars. Like I genuinely saw a review that said not 5 stars, 5 million stars. This book is the best book ever, and they just wanted to reread it over and over again. I went into this so excited. I have been trying to expand my romance experience. I've been trying to read like dark romance. I've been trying to read like really like interesting plot. I've been really wanting to read this like series that is just being started about the 12 dancing princesses and their like dark romances. I've been really trying. I've read Haunting Adeline, I've read the Game On series, now complete. I'm trying to open and broaden my horizons, so I've gone into this like really excited, because the premise of it is like a fairy tale retelling of Alice in the Wonderland. We've got Wendy, who is obviously the girl that Peter Pan takes to Neverland, and she falls in love with Captain Hook, James. Peter Pan is Wendy's dad, John is Wendy's brother, and that is the sort of thing. Hook runs a gang, and he is aiming to use Wendy against her father, to try and take him down. And so this is a really interesting premise. You know, there's going to be a little bit of a betrayal in the book. He's obviously going to use her. He captures her, and he like abuses her a little bit. And sometimes in books you're like, that's really like however, he is actually not a kind man, and I didn't expect him to be kind at all. But the whole book is just lust filled. There is no romantic connection at all. They don't get to know each other. They don't learn each other's favorite colors. They don't learn each other's like weaknesses. They don't learn each other's strengths. They don't learn each other's favorite foods. They just eat food and then fuck, basically. And it was not interesting to me. I did not care about the main male character at all. There was no, like, I did not want to date him. I did not love him. I did not feel the way I was meant to feel when I was reading a romance book. And then when he did capture her, when he kidnaps her and then holds her captive because he believes that she has double-crossed him, despite the fact that she hadn't. Obviously that was like a miscommunication, blah blah blah, and like we sometimes do eat that up in romance books, because as I said, there's like things that you will accept in romance books that you won't accept in real life. A little capturing is one of them. But it just really wasn't good, and it wasn't a dark romance, it was abusive lust. And I wrote that in my review, actually. I'm pretty sure I said that in my review, and I was so excited for this. I did write in my review, I was so excited for this. I do still have the other books in the series. I have heard that this one is quite different. It is the next one, and I do hope that, because obviously the author then matures as a writer throughout the writing of the series, as we have seen with like Mile High, that book series, the Chicago, what the fuck is that called? I just call it the Mile High series, the Windy City series. That one, the author literally clearly grows. But apparently the consensus online is this is the best book. So I will give the next book a try, maybe the next 2 books, but if they're both 1 stars, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to get rid of them because I do not like this book. This book is bad. Objectively bad as well, like bad. The next book I read was You May Now Kill the Bride. I did also read both of these books within 24 hours. Like, I was literally on a reading high. I read this book so quickly as well. I read this one, The Yellow Face, really quickly because it was just amazing. And then Hooked, the writing was so small. No, so big that I could read like a page in like 30 seconds and like read 60 pages in like half an hour. And so I was like, I can just get through this book so quickly. Like, I was reading overnight, like for an hour, and I read like 120 pages, and then I was like, oh, I'm just gonna finish this book. This book, You May Now Kill the Bride, follows. I have had this book for ages, actually. No, I haven't. I've had this since my birthday, like a month ago. It follows a group of bridesmaids who they go on a hen party and the bride dies. I'm actually just gonna read my review for this because I don't entirely remember what I want to say and have enough to say it like efficiently and like brain, because I am stupid and I read it like a while ago, and I read 3 other books since then. My rating was 3.75, and I enjoyed this book and enjoyed how different all the characters were. I think it's really easy to lose personality points in a book when writing such a large friendship group, but this author manages it. The mystery was good. The possibility that it was Lauren was intense, and that the real problems the group went through. I really appreciated that they all stayed friends at the end. So basically, there was a real big possibility that one of the main characters was obviously the killer. It did end up that one of the main characters was the killer, but it was not the girl that we were all focused upon. And there was such a large friendship group, about 5 girls in this friendship group. Obviously one of them does die, but every single girl in the friendship group had such different personality points. Lauren was really small and timid, but inside, in her head, she was not small and timid. She was angry all the time. She just wanted to be like, guys, shut up, leave me alone, like, because they did rag on her a little bit, but she didn't. And every word that came out of her mouth, you could kind of tell like she wanted it to be a bigger word, but she was just so small. And then Saskia was this girl who had come from a really working class background, married into an upper class, and you could tell like she was really upper class. She really judged everyone else. She really like worked hard to protect her new upper class existence. And then when you got her drunk, she was so working class. When she was with her friends for a really long period of time and away from her husband, she was so working class, and she would drink WKD out of like a can. She would chug beer. She would wear a penis sash for her friends hen do. But if she was in front of her husband or in front of any of her upper class friends, she was drinking champagne. She was wearing really white like dresses, she would never sit there and be like, one penis forever, you know, the whole gag for Hindus, and that was really nice. And then there was Tansy, who was this big vegan like influencer with her friend Ava, who did actually really mirror her personality points, but that was on purpose. The author did do that on purpose, that Ava would try and do exactly what Tansy was doing, but then would also come off looking like a bit smaller than Tansy when she wanted to look bigger. And then there was another friend, Dominica, who was loud, abrasive, really wanted to protect her friends at all costs. And I really loved how they were all brought together. Also, the book was told in different and quite different. It was told in third person POV, but it would have like 5 paragraphs per girl, and then it would switch to another girl, and it was like you were a camera in the room and going over all of them. I really liked that. It felt quite really like that I was watching a reality show. There were some things that did downfall it, really weird ones, like the author's writing style. Obviously I like the multiple POVs. She would do something where if a character was shouting, she'd write it all in block capitals and then put like exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. And it was like, what are you doing? Like, that reads like a fucking fan fiction that hasn't been edited yet. That reads like, sometimes I'll write stuff like that in my notebook and then I'll go over it and remember to remind myself, like, put this in the actual writing. Make it read that the character is shouting, but don't put it in block capitals. Like, craft this. And that really did piss me off. It didn't, that didn't make it, like, that obviously did make it lose a little bit of stars, because every time I saw it, took me out of the story. I do not know what would have taken to make it a 5 stars. It just wasn't a 5 stars. Obviously that did make it a little less, but even so, with that taken off, like if I forgot that she had done that, it would still only be a 4 stars. And I don't genuinely know what she could have done to make it a 5 stars. But you know, when you find a 5 stars, you find a 5 stars, and that was not a 5 stars. I'm gonna go quickly have my lunch and then I'm gonna come back and film the rest of this video. I'm back. Like, before I started filming this video, I thought, oh, I'm gonna put my like lunch out to cool down. Won't take that long to film. And then I've just chatted for like a really long time. Anyway, now we're on to even better book. We've only got 1 5-star read over here, but I'm pretty sure there'll be another 5-star read in this pile. So this is King of Gluttony by Anna Huang. I don't remember what I rated this. Okay, so this follows Sebastian Laurent and what's her name? Maya Singh, who have been enemies since they were children, but not really enemies. They've just been like school competitors. Like, they were always either like the #1 spot on school, and it was constantly switching between them, and Maya always wanted to be first. Sebastian literally didn't even care. He just rolled up to school every day, and that pissed Maya off to no end. And as they go out into like the adult world, they both sort of land the similar job, him at his family company and her at hers, and they both are basically now competing in the real world for the top person in this marketing. They're both marketing officers, they're CMOs, and they are launched together into working into a collaboration between the 2 companies, and they're both really like angry that they are doing this. Well, Maya is more angry than Seb. Seb's like just taking it in his stride. He does that quite a lot, which also pisses Maya off. And I really loved this book. Like, the first 75% of this book was a 5 stars. It was absolutely incredible. The banter that both of them were doing, like, they would argue all the time, and they would have really, really, really nice conversations like snapped into it, and then they would just argue again, and that was really nice. And you could really see both of their personalities really shining through. I liked the fact that their parents were best friends, and then there was a bit of conflict between their parents. I liked the like the forcing nature of one of their parents. Like, Maya's dad like decided that she couldn't speak to a couple of her friends for a while, and that was really like a point of contention in the book that the reader like has to think about a bit more. Like, sometimes when you're reading a romance book and the only concentration is on the 2 characters, or like the collaboration was a bit like, you have to think about that a little bit, but not too much. sometimes in a romance book that like only thinking on the romance of the characters can get a bit boring, but on this book we had to think about the way Maya's father was treating her, despite the fact that she was a literal grown woman, telling her who she can and can't speak to. And then we also had to think about there was someone trying to sabotage the collaboration and anything that Sebastian was doing. Like one person died at his first food launch, and then there was something else that happened at another one, and then at Maya's company there was a shock intake of food poisoning as well. So there was a bit like, oh, someone sabotaging, so that was really good. And Anna Huang is really good at that in general. In every single one of her books there has been like a really good background plot. Like in Twisted Love there was a great one. In King of Greed there was a great one. I'm trying to think of the other ones. Like I think Twisted Love will always be the OG one for that. But this one was really good. And then at the last 25% of the book was really when it went down. Oh, side note, I've heard online that Sparrow Falls is really good for this, and after I get through my absolute massive TBR I will definitely be checking that series out, because I really am excited. Like apparently they mix romance and murder really nicely. But the last 25% of the book really pissed me off, because they went from enemies to lovers, of course. They slept together and then they were arguing a bit afterwards, and then they just got into an official relationship and they had to keep it secret. But their personalities completely changed 180, twisted around. Instead of like arguing and bickering and bantering like they always did, they were just always 110% in love. Always, like he went through the whole time of the book calling her Sal, because she was the salutatorian to his valedictorian, and he would like made fun of her for that. And then after they got together he called her Mon Ange, and it was just completely 180. But personally for me, in my relationship in real life, I do keep a little bit of banter. Like we make fun of each other all the time. We were always friends before we got into a relationship, and I would absolutely hate if 110% of the time he was just being lovely and kind to me. Actually, even 50% of the time is a bit much. Like, be my friend first, be my bully first, be my confidant first, and then last, can you be my lover please? Like, I love you being my lover, but I also need just someone as a person, someone who can tell me when I'm wrong, someone who can tell me when I'm right, someone to make fun of me, someone to bully me a little bit. That is what I want. And when I read that their literal personalities just shifted, they were always just 100 and nice to each other, really triggered me. And that actually brought it down, because the first 75%, 5 stars, I literally couldn't put it down. I finished that book, picked up this one straight away on the same night and read like 50 pages. The next night I kept thinking, oh, next chapter I'll put this down, next chapter I'll put this down, and then I didn't. And then I was really excited to finish it the next day after that, and I got really shit like the rest of the book left, and I was really pissed off. I mean, I read it in 3 days, but so yeah, it's like a, what did I rate, like a 3.75 stars. But I really hope, obviously I think there's 2 more or 1 more of this book series. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's only 1 more of this one, and then 1 more of the King of Gods of the Game series. So I am looking forward to the God of the Game one, because the next one's a football like goalkeeper, and my boyfriend's a goalkeeper. So I'm really excited to read that, and I'm also kind of excited to read the Killian and Tate one. The next book I read was Game On by Nivisa Allen. I really did enjoy this book. There was nowhere for me to write my bloody review, so I had to write it like this. Like, I do appreciate when they try and save paper, but I like to write a little review in the back of the book. This follows Tyler, who is the best friend of Josh in the first book. As soon as I read that first book, I knew Tyler would be getting one, and I literally in my head was like, oh, the next book is going to be about Tyler, and it wasn't. It was about some other guy. That's my favorite book in the series, the second one, may I say. But I was like really shocked that it wasn't Tyler. And this one follows Tyler and his tattoo artist, who is called Stella. I love the name Stella. Who basically, Tyler is a finance bro, and he has a story for vengeance. He wants to literally destroy his birth father and dismantle him from the inside out. Like, he wants to go in. His father is a really rich billionaire type guy who is the CEO of a company, and his best friend is Stella's dad. So he knows if he gets in with Stella, meets her dad, he can then work on taking them down from the inside. So he uses Stella, he blackmails Stella into pretending to be his girlfriend after he meets her at her tattoo salon. This thing he has been planning for months. He runs an illegal gambling ring, and he is essentially, his whole plan is to get lots and lots and lots of Richard, that's his dad, Richard's clients to go in, gamble away all their money, and then blackmail them into like giving up their companies, stopping doing business with Richard, and then eventually like making Richard want to himself. And I really did like this book. It made me so angry at sometimes, which I think is really good to have like that strong visceral emotions when you're reading a book. It made me really violently angry towards Tyler, but there was always points where he was like softening to her, and like you could be like, wow, he's really like he would get upset because she wouldn't eat a lot, and he like would really get emotional about it until she told him that the reason she didn't eat a lot was because he thought she was like on a hunger strike or something, and she was like, no, I have like an illness, I can only eat certain foods. And then he starts keeping the foods that she can eat with him at all times, which is adorable. And then he like starts talking to her pet parrot, and it's adorable as well. He figures out that he has a brat kink. I really do love Navisa Allen's books because it has introduced me to, obviously knew about bondage, voyeurism really like let me in, and then obviously the brat kink where the male was the brat, and it was really cool. I really appreciated that. But there is a thing that takes down this book, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, but this whole book is about Stella and Tyler. So the relationship is between Stella and Tyler, and then they do have two menage a trois in the book, which is good. I like appreciate that, and I really have been wanting to get into a why choose. So after this is over, I will be trying to get a few menage a trois, not menage a trois, why chooses. I really am looking forward to that. I really do want ones that have physical copies because I like having an actual library, thank you. But most of the ones I'm looking at are like Kindle Unlimited only, which is annoying. What was I saying? And I always buy like books from in person, so I struggle to find them. But anyway, not the point. But they then end up with the guy they were menage a trois with, and he becomes like a central part to their relationship in the last chapter. Very, 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 very last chapter, he becomes like their boyfriend. And so in my head I was like, oh, we could have built up to this. This could have been a whole new arc. You could have like extended this a little bit, made it like something they were working out. But it was literally in the last chapter like, oh, do you want him to be our boyfriend? Yeah, he can be our boyfriend. And like, I love him more than life. And I was like, oh, because we weren't really like, that wasn't something that we had talked about before. So for that, it actually couldn't be a 5 stars because it just literally came out of left field. So yeah, that's a 4 stars. Like if it had been like something that we'd, because I loved the scenes with all 3 of them, I loved the connection they had, but there was 2 scenes with all 3 of them, so it was like, what? Okay. And then I also have read All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. I loved this book. As you can tell, I had a lot to say about it. I rated it 5 stars, and it follows Marie Laure, yeah, who is blind. She becomes blind at age 6, and she lives in Paris, and her father builds her like this model town of like Paris, and she can run her fingers along it, and it literally is to the bloody like detail. Like, there are storm grates, there are cars, well, not really cars, there are street signs, there are like drains, there are lampposts, and she can walk her fingers along it, and figure out which house is which and which house is on the street, and then he takes her out every single day and he gets her to count her steps every single place she walks, so she can count and see where she is going, and she can figure out her own life. And then obviously war starts when she is around, I think she's like 13, when Hitler starts invading France, and she escapes to like a little coastal town in Paris, not Paris, but like a little coastal town. I've forgotten what it is called. And she goes and lives with her uncle Ishwen, and her father gets taken by the Nazis, unfortunately, and she is left in charge of a very, very important stone, which keeps the owner of the stone alive forever, and she is being hunted. But she doesn't know she's being hunted. They don't know that she is the one being hunted. The stone is being hunted. And then on the flip side, we are following this boy called Werner, who is an orphan in Germany, who has been enlisted to go into the school of like national politics, because he is absolutely amazing at like electronics and engineering, and he is incredible at it. And he gets then enlisted into the Nazis, and he travels about all of like Germany, Russia, Poland, and he finds and squashes resistance on radios, which is like insane. And he would like be with one of his classmates. They were no longer classmates, but like comrades, and there was like 4 of them, and they would like go to a place that they knew there was a resistance. They had received tip-offs that there was a resistance in this area. They would set up this radio, which I'm pretty sure did exist, and they would use that radio to track down where the exact resistance was, and then they would go in and they would shoot the person and kill every single person in the house and squash the resistance, and then take the stuff. And they have been led to the exact town that Marie is in, because her uncle is doing like a resistance where he basically is just on the radio every night announcing births, marriages, deaths, christenings to France, to let people know that there was still some light in the world. And we don't actually have a lot of scenes between Marie and Werner, but he does end up doing something for her that was pretty incredible. And the whole book was just incredible. Seeing how they were living their lives was just amazing. Seeing Marie's like life through her own lens, because obviously she was blind, was just incredible. And seeing, I always do love to see what Nazi Germany was like for the children of the time, especially because I am a historian. I absolutely love history, and I'm studying history at university. Seeing the people that are, you know, that it was in their homes, in their lives, and they were just indoctrinated from such a young age. And at such a young age, Werner did not believe in what the Hitler Youth was saying, what the Nazis were saying, but he just went along with it. And you could see like the what's it called, from how old he was, like 7 when it first started, to when he was like 16, where he was just accepting that this was his life now, that he had to do it, he had to harm people in order for him to survive. And it was just incredible to watch and to see. I will say that I do know that there is a Netflix, there is one on Netflix or something about this book, and they did extend the romantic chemistry with it, and I just didn't, like, there was not really that much in it of the book. Werner did say that he did fall in love with her, that's a bit of a spoiler, but there was not really that much of a romantic connection fed to us in the book, and it did make me really, really, really hungry for some romantic historical fiction. And then the last book I read, or the first book I read, was The Book of Azrael by Amber V. Nicole, which actually really disappointed me, which I'm so upset about, because I read this book after having it on my TBR for over 3 years. It was number 2 on my TBR that I started before I got in a relationship with my boyfriend, so almost over 3 years ago. I have heard the most beautiful things about this book. Like, people were like, this is a god tier book, and I was really just let down about it. There is a woman called Diana who is made by this guy called Caden into being like immortal, and because she's immortal, her sister is also immortal, and she works with Caden, and he blackmails her a lot into doing exactly as he tells her, and harming other people and such. And she is his lover, and she eventually breaks free of him because she goes to go and kill this other guy that Caden wants her to kill, and she decides that she's not going to do it and she's going to work against him. And they fall in love pretty much instantaneously. Like, they hate each other at first, and then like after like 2 seconds spent together, they were like, I love you, and they're like shagging like 24/7. And then suddenly they're on the I'm gonna burn the whole world down for you within one book. It went from like here, where it was like, oh, I hate this guy, I literally want to murder him, to here, where they were like, I'm gonna burn the world down for you, I love you so much. And literally I said it in a TikTok when I was reading this, the only way I can describe it is it was like watching 2 year 7s who had gotten into a relationship, and it was so infuriating, so maddening, because there are 2 more books in the series, one of them bigger than this one of them smaller. What could you possibly have to say? Question. Because I read a whole lot of this for not too much satisfaction. Like, I rated it 2.5 stars. I'm really annoyed by it, and I really do want to read the next one just to see if it does get better. But again, that's another series that has been on my like TBR for a really long time, that has just really fallen flat for me, and I was really annoyed. I also read this on my Danish holiday, my holiday for the year. I went to Denmark, and normally the books I bring with me to other countries are meant to be the ones that stand out in my mind. I mean, I brought one very shit book to Denmark the last time I went, so I started another one, and it was absolutely incredible. It was a book about a Christmas ghost, Priory of the Orange Tree in Italy, The Book Thief in Germany, Book Lovers in Portugal, and this was my Danish summer holiday book. Fuming. But as you can tell, I had a lot to say about the books I read this month. I am going to be late to work, so I need to go walk my dog, charge my phone, wipe down my bathroom, and get my butt moving. But thank you so much for watching. I am going to be picking out on my books, hopefully before I leave for work, so tomorrow I can film a TBR for July. It's going to be very summer themed because I have so many summer themed books that have been waiting for me, have been calling my name. So many books recently have actually just been shouting Hadley, 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 because they just want me to read them so bad. So current book that I will be reading though, I was going to start it this morning and I wrote my review instead, so I'm going to start it tonight, is Fever Dream by Elsie Silver, which I think is such a summer book. Like, look at that, summertime.